Rainy day today. It's storming pretty hard outside. Time for a game of Dominion. What we got today? Searing Spear 92. Good luck to you. Well. Okay, so draw could be Enchantress, +2 cards. The next turn after you play it, Nobles can be +3 cards. Minion can draw. You have to discard your hand first. So Minion would only work with, for example, cards like Candlestick Maker, Herbalist, or more minions as payload, because you need the ability to play those cards mid-turn, and then discard the rest of your hand, and then redraw. Actions. Nobles can be a village. It's not a very good village. Certainly the village is the weaker of these two effects, but it technically can be a village. And Lost Arts allows you to stick a plus action token on anything. So you could put that on, for example, a card that already had +1 action and turn it into a village, or you could just put it directly on a card that was a terminal action card, so you didn't need a village to play it. Like turn this Nobles from +3 cards into +3 cards +1 action. So what are we doing here? Trashing. Well, we've got a bit of trashing in the form of Steward. Trash a card and gain a card costing 1 more. And we've got a little bit of gains. Again, Steward can gain you a card costing 1 more. Herbalist can give +1 buy. Candlestick Maker can give +1 buy. I think I'm a little torn. And there is an engine to be had here, but it's real weak. We've got a little bit of draw here. We could put Lost Arts on it, make it a little bit stronger. We can trash down a little bit, and Triumphal Arch inclines me slightly in that direction, because that'll be a landmark that benefits engines a bit. If you have basically at least 2 stacks of action cards, you'll get a lot of points, because it gives you 3 points per second most common action card in your deck. But that doesn't come together very well. There's no real village, short of Lost Arts. Nobles' village is really expensive for a very minimal effect. It's like a $6 Necropolis. And there is Gardens, which is worth 1 victory point per 10 cards you have. And we've got Treasure Trove, which shoves a bunch of treasures in your deck. And so I'm actually kind of thinking this might be a scenario where we just play the Gardens Treasure Trove thing. So how do I open if I want to do that? I think I'm going to open with an Enchantress. Certainly a little bit of draw is good for either deck. And, you could go like silver, buy Treasure Troves and then buy Gardens. But given that Triumphal Arch is around anyway, this deck probably wants at least, a few actions in it, because the first few actions we buy is going to be worth 3 points each. And so I think we might stick in like 2 or 3 Enchantresses for draw, 2 or 3 Candlestick Makers for plus buy, get some Treasure Troves, and then try to get as many cards into our deck as possible so we can power up that Gardens. So maybe I just take a second Enchantress. Let's get a Candlestick Maker. Okay, this will be another Candlestick Maker for us. I'm not yet sure what their strategy is going to be. Cobbler, we didn't talk about Cobbler, but Cobbler is basically like a workshop where you play it at the end of 1 turn and you gain the card directly to hand at the start of the next turn. It's not a very strong card, but it's certainly strong in the workshop. First off, it's a night card, which means you play it after your buy phase. This is a card. This is a type of card that's unique to the expansion Nocturne. Night cards don't require actions to play. So, for example, unlike Workshop, it is a non-terminal card. Because by virtue of not being an action, it does not cost you an action to spend. And then second, the fact that it comes at the start of your next turn is very good for reliability, because you can wait until next turn, see what your hand is, and then know what you need to add. So like if there's a smithy in the kingdom and a village, you can look at your hand and say, oh, I'm missing a village, or oh, I'm missing a smithy, and then add that. So that's why it's better than Workshop, but it's still not that good in an objective sense. And I think part of the reason is just, I don't think we get a copper quite yet. At some point we're going to start buying coppers to power up our Gardens. But I'm still at the point where I'd rather like to find these key cards, and we're about to reshuffle, so I'm not going to put copper into my deck. I think the big problem for Cobbler is not that you wouldn't buy it over a Workshop if they both cost the same, it's that it costs 5, and 5 is a very competitive price point to be at. Because most of the power cards in Dominion cost 5. So at 4 or something, you know, not much of an issue. You could conceive of buying Cobbler pretty often. Once they start to get to 5, there's just usually higher priority cards to get for 5. Alright, they're going straight for Gardens. We probably can't, we're kind of committed to the Gardens thing, so we can't really let them get ahead on that. Might as well take the first Gardens now, I think. And we can take the Copper. Alright, we're now committed. We're doing more or less the same Gardens Rush. I think we have 2 Enchantresses and they have, no, we have 2 Enchantresses and 2 Candlestick Makers to their silver, so we actually have a marginal edge. Now we did go for some number of actions with Triumph Arch in mind, and so I think we have a little bit of a lead here. What did they buy? Yeah, they went Enchantress Silver, then Candlestick Maker, Treasure Trove. Yeah, I think we have a very marginal lead, because I like this Enchantress more than I like their silver. Just another Gardens and a Copper. I think so. Now usually, in a lot of decks when you're playing a Gardens Rush, you get like a gainer like Workshop or Ironworks or something, or Groom. A lot of the Workshop variants. And then the plan is just to rush down the Gardens pile ASAP, the pile of gainers ASAP, and then some third pile, usually like Estates, and bring the game to a close as quickly as possible. Now we have a gainer here. Certainly Cobbler wouldn't be a bad card to have if we could get it in a Gardens deck. But it's not really amenable to the same strategy for a few reasons. First is, 5 is a big number to hit. We were just saying it can be a little bit difficult, and so you can't just reliably open with it in the first place. And then importantly, because it costs 5, Cobbler can't gain itself, whereas Ironworks can gain Ironworks, Workshop can gain Workshop, Groom can gain Groom, Groom can gain Groom. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. And so it's hard to empty the Cobbler pile fast, and part of the virtue of a lot of Gardens Rushes is just the ability to empty the piles as quickly as possible. And so that's the big limitation of Cobbler and why, despite the fact that we're playing Gardens, we're not even getting the Workshop variant that's in the Kingdom. Okay. Can we find a Candlestick Maker? This is nice. Oh, well, I was really hoping to hit 2 buys and 8s. I could take both of the last 2 Gardens. We can't quite do that. So I think we will split the Gardens evenly, because I think we have 3 at the moment, and they have 3. That's not a big deal. Now our deck I think is going to be a little bit better at, continuing to green, not relative to theirs, but relative to the average Gardens deck, because the things we're adding are sometimes gold and stuff like that, and so we will hit 5 fairly often and can get duchies rather than estates. Alright, let's think. Do we just want to go straight for duchies now? Not really sure, to be honest. I really don't know. There aren't 2 piles empty. We said a lot of times there's 2 piles empty in a Gardens Rush, and that's why you need to just go straight for estates. It could be that we add like 1 more treasure trove, maybe, to maybe give us a little bit more ability to hit provinces. We don't dislike getting extra gold and copper, because that's also increasing the number of cards in our deck, which powers up the Gardens. Don't complain about that. Now, if they didn't contest the Gardens, if we got like all the Gardens, I'd be focusing less on potentially getting provinces and more on, how do we get a lot of cards into our deck? Because every time we get 10 cards, we're getting 8 points from the Gardens. We only have 4 of them, so getting 10 cards just to get 4 points, it's good, but it's not the end-all be-all priority that wins us the game. And so there's definitely room here to figure out how can you get this deck competitive to at least buy duchies and provinces pretty often, because that'll be a decent amount of points. So we now have 3 Enchantresses and 2 Candlestick Makers, so we'll definitely want to get at least 1 more Candlestick Maker, because that'll be worth 3 points for us. He's taken 2 Candlestick Makers. Alright, we hit 6. So now we've reshuffled, and you see we've got 25 cards here, so it's going to be at least 5 more turns minimum before we find whatever we buy here. So I'm not super interested right now, I don't think, in buying another card like Treasure Trove or Cobbler that's going to be very helpful for us if we play it, because we're playing it at earliest 6 turns later. Good chance the game might be over by then. I could consider just buying province here. Could consider buying duchy. I think we'll probably just take a province. And at this point, we're mostly just scoring. Okay, so he's going for continuing to build more. Not sure about that. This could be our candlestick maker. This could also be a fourth enchantress. We know that we'll have plus black coming up when we do find our candlestick makers, and we could buy 2 candlestick makers at a time. So maybe there's an argument for just getting the enchantress now with 3 coins. Again, because our deck is so thick, we have minimum 3 turns before we even shuffle the deck, and this enchantress could be in there anywhere. It's less of a question of like what card do I need immediately right now with my deck. An engine would often ask, you know, next turn what do I need? Because you're drawing through your deck, next turn you're going to find that card immediately. We're not in that situation here, and so this is a scenario we can think a little bit more in terms of, you know, not what do I need right now, but like, oh, I have this amount of money this shuffle, I'll buy the expensive card, and then on my next turn I'll just buy the cheaper card if I hit less, because you have a few turns of leeway before you even get to see the cards again. And so we can like buy enchantress on 3, knowing that we have the potential to buy a candlestick maker later for 2. Do we get another duchy here? Do we get another enchantress? You know, I don't mind having a lot of draw, because, you know, it is spread out across a large number of cards in the deck, and so the chance of enchantresses colliding isn't even that high. And as you saw, we actually did collide 2 enchantresses there, and it didn't matter anyway, because their enchantress attack had hit, which causes the first card you play to be played as a cantrip instead of its normal effect. And so we were able to just play that enchantress for draw anyway. Alright, now I think I'll just take 3 candlestick makers to get those points. Okay, so now I think we're even on candlestick makers and enchantresses. We've got a pretty substantial points lead. I think probably a lot of that is the candlestick enchantress thing. And we'll probably just take a duchy here. Oh, he's lowering piles. Now we do have a hefty points lead. Is there a 3rd pile we can just rush down? I mean, theoretically we could just buy 4 enchantresses if we thought that they couldn't outscore us in 4 turns. That seems a little bit risky. So let's just take a province. We are very likely to hit 8 again. So we did say one thing I think I liked about our deck over there was we at least paid a little bit more mind to the Triumph Large points. We definitely got a fair few more action cards than they do. And we added actions that still fit fine in this deck, right? We have Candlestick Maker that gives plus buy, that helps us get more coppers to power up the gardens. We have Enchantress, which is just kind of a terminal draw, and terminal draw is kind of fine in like money-ish decks. But I'm not totally sure why we're able to afford provinces so much more frequently. Like, it's not obvious to me that why what they're doing was weaker at getting high price points. Maybe it's these enchantresses, maybe it's just because we have more draw. We have like a few really small turns the turn we play the enchantress, and a few really big turns the play we draw with the enchantress that are helping us spike bigger numbers. That's my guess. And so we're having turns of 2 and turns of 8, and that's probably good for us because we're fine buying like copper on the turn of 2 and hitting province later. But this is certainly more of a points lead than I anticipated. I can't fully account for our having 55 to their 29. It's also possible that we did just get a bit lucky with draws, or they got unlucky with draws in ways that I'm just not subtly noticing. Copper, estate, another enchantress. I think we can't score more points with our enchantress because we already have as many enchantresses as we do candlestick makers, and this pile's out. I could buy the enchantress anyway, even though it spins a coffer, just because it lowers that pile a bit, and so, you know, I always have that threat of just buying 3 enchantresses to end the game. I think I'm just going to play it safe and take a point. I see no reason to rush this. You know, like if we just continue scoring and they continue scoring, I think we win well before they catch up. Maybe there's some scenario where if we stop scoring and start buying enchantresses, they hit province a few times and are suddenly back in the game. Should be a duchy for them, I would assume. Yep. Alright, I can take a duchy here. Should I do that? Let's save that to see if we can maybe hit province again. Yeah, we can hit province here. Nice. Our having 6 candlestick makers to their 4 is also kind of helpful because the plus buy is just extra cards getting shoved into our deck, which makes the gardens a little bit more valuable. Okay, this is a nice hand. We can afford a duchy and also get an enchantress down. Now the one thing that's a little bit sad here is we only have 4 cards left for next turn, so playing this enchantress now means even though this enchantress is not in the 4 cards that are definitively missing the shuffle, it's going to miss the shuffle as well because it's going to stay out of play. Now, in this context, in this deck, that doesn't matter at all. There's no way we're going to draw through the rest of our cards anyway before this game ends. But I'll just take a second to demonstrate, because I think this might be helpful for understanding other decks, is, this is kind of why duration cards are often a little bit weaker than their non-duration counterparts. It's like, why is Caravan Guard cheaper than a card like Poacher? Why is Caravan cheaper than Laboratory, when both of them are just cantrips that, on top of the cantrip effect, also draw you a card? And the reason is because oftentimes in scenarios like this, let's say this was a Caravan or a Lab. If we played it as a Lab, we'd draw 2 cards, reshuffle our deck, Lab would be back in the deck. If it was a Caravan, we'd draw 1 card immediately, and Caravan would stay out of play, draw us another card, but the deck would have already shuffled, and so Caravan would have missed out on being inside that shuffle. And so duration cards often miss shuffles, and that's more significant in engines where you want to play each card every turn, and you're shuffling through your deck every turn. Not as important here, but I hope it helps explain, why duration cards sometimes cost a little bit less, or seem a little bit less powerful. Yeah, I'm not seeing how they get back into this game. It's not like we have big decks that can score a lot of points all at once. I'm not the most scintillating kingdom, but it is nice to see that every now and then there is an engine that technically exists, but it's so weak and the money-ish cards are so strong that you do ignore it. And that's not a thing that ever happens. I don't want to suggest every single time an engine is technically possible that you should go for it. I think that we probably would lose if we tried to draft and develop and draw a bunch of stuff from nobles. Their deck would be a lot scarier if we did that because they would have 8 gardens instead of 4, so they'd be getting a lot more points a lot sooner. We're going to win this turn. There's 2 piles empty. We're beaten by a duchy. There's no way they can come back. They'd have to score more than they have to score 20 points because we have 16 points here, and we'll have the ability to score 3 more. Yeah, that's the game. Key takeaways, we already mentioned one. There are exceptions to the rule that sometimes big money can be stronger than engines, or in this case kind of a Gardens Rush thing that turned into a money deck. What were the key limitations that made that true? Well, in this kingdom, a big one was there was very little plus action. We saw that the only plus action source was nobles, which is $6 to get functionally an Acropolis. It's got 2 victory points, but we didn't really care. Like if you're trying to build an engine, you don't really care about the amount of victory points your cards have. It's how quickly they can ramp up. The draw wasn't amazing because the best draw plus 3 cards was on the same card that the village effect was, of which there are only 8 cards in the supply. There's only 8 nobles instead of 10 because nobles is a victory card. So there's not a whole lot of draw or action to go around. We could resolve a little bit of that by using Lost Arts, put that on nobles for something, and then be able to draw. The trashing was all right, but develop only trashes 1 card at a time, so it'd take a good bit to get trashed. And there wasn't any amazing engine payload or anything. We didn't have Horn of Plenty in the kingdom that would make you want to build. That could be enough to make me perhaps want to go for the engine. So there's technically little bits of action, draw, and buy scattered around, but none of them was particularly good and didn't really come together to form a very good deck. And then we did have Treasure Trove, which is both A, a great card for big money, and then B, a great card for gardens. And so there are contextual scenarios where the engine is worse, and this was one of them. That being said, I think a key lesson here is sometimes you have to adapt the deck you're playing a little bit to the kingdom. we did say, even though we were going for just shove a bunch of treasure in our deck and score points with gardens and money, there were extra victory points to be had from getting a good number of each of an action pile. And so, so we scored a whole lot of points that way. They didn't end up coming back, it looks like, and scoring 12 in the end, but it forced them to buy 4 herbalists, which they never really used. So we were able to get productive actions that actually helped us a lot, while also scoring those points. And then our later game buys could be more so estates and duchies and stuff that scored points, which maybe eked out a little bit of difference.